today's title is really interesting because it's making the impact reviews the new QBRs. What are impact reviews and why are we doing this? Well, that's Jennifer's fault. Sorry for that then. Jennifer, when we were talking about coordinating the episode, we decided to talk about QBRs, and you said that I don't like that name. So it sounds really interesting to me. But before we jump into the topic of today, let me first say that sadly, Naf is not here with us today. He had an important meeting, and priorities are priorities, but we are here with two amazing guests. And first, let me introduce Ken Kreutzer. Kreutzer, which is
Perfect.
yeah, it's good, right? Please say yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. So Ken is a frontline customer success manager with 4 years of experience in this amazing world that we all love, customer success. Ken had roles like as customer success specialist, customer success manager, senior customer success manager, and hopefully leader of customer success soon. Ken, welcome to our episode.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. It's a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about customer success. Also with us, we have Jennifer with a decade of experience with us here today. Jennifer is currently head of customer success and also the strategic advisor of that community called Customer Success or CS Connect, actually, based in Amsterdam. Plus, CS leader of the year in 2023, just last year. And we have the honor to have you here, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, both of you, for being here and transferring your knowledge to our listeners today. And like I just said a couple of seconds ago, we're going to talk about impact reviews. So let's start with the basics. Jennifer, can you explain why you like to call QBRs impact reviews? Why are they important on building the customer relationship? And I'm really curious, why impact reviews?
There are two things that come in there. One is the Q in the QBR, which stands for quarterly, and that then puts the focus on the cadence of the meeting, which is more on KPIs and ticking the box for activities for CSM, but not necessarily bringing the value that it should to the CSM and to the customer. And then when you think about the BR, the business review, whose business are you really reviewing in those QBRs? Is it your own business or is it really your customer's business? So to me, impact review is just a name that is going to change the mindset of how you come into the meeting, but it also tells the customer that we're going to review the impact your solution has on them and not some sort of abstract business, which you're not really sure whose business it is.
Ken, you have worked with Jennifer before, right? So are you calling QBR's impact reviews as well?
Yeah, we had to we had to change to change the names of those meetings. But yeah, I think what Jennifer also mentioned, it also makes sense to let the customer understand, right, what kind of meeting an impact review is. Right? If you talk about a business review, it's also like some not like a, yeah, how to say it, like not very understandable what you want to discuss during those meetings.
Yeah, definitely. And also when we create the invites for this type of meetings, and in the title it says impact review, it literally creates an impact on the customer and saying, okay, we're gonna have an impact review of with this person, right? Instead of a QBR, which is already a common name, which people our customers are used to seeing as well. So they know what is all of that about, and maybe we can lose interest of them.
Exactly. And it's also three letters, right? It's not really a name per se.
Hmm. That's totally true. One of the challenges that we go through when having these impact reviews are sometimes not proper training for having those type of conversations, even high level conversations in those impact reviews. Now we know that there might be senior customer success managers who have done this before, and yeah, that's a different deal there. But what happens if you are first in this world and you just have the opportunity and you need to have these meetings? training could be complicated there as well, having those difficult conversations. So Ken, I would like to hear your experience here as a frontline customer success manager. Have you had any situation where you felt that better training could have could have made a different outcome in the impact review?
Yeah, and yeah, I think what I already mentioned, you need to understand what kind of what the added value is every meeting, right? So it's not only about an impact review, but it's from the kickoff to the implementation plan, maybe check-in calls, impact review, renewal calls, right? The whole customer journey. You need to be aware as a CSM what kind of added value you can bring to the table of every meeting. And I think an impact review or a QBR is the most difficult one to understand, maybe as a CSM, but also for the customer. Does the CSM bring to the table, but also what does the customer bring to the table? So I need from the beginning of the relationship, from the kickoff, actually, you need to, let's say, plant the seed and let the customer understand, hey, this is going to be the customer journey. This is the kickoff. We have the implementation calls. I think those two kind of type of calls are quite yeah, easy to understand. What do you actually do? Yeah, you checklist, of course, not per se checklist, but of course you go through the implementation, you implement the system, and the impact review can be more not per se difficult, but a broader topic and different kind of topics you can discuss. So I think it's also to helping the customer. Hey, we are gonna have like an impact review in 3 or 6 months, and we can discuss topic X, Y, Z. Maybe you have to think about already beforehand what the topics could be, so I can already prepare them. So I think this already planting the seed of what's going to happen in 6 months, and then it's also going to be easier to having the impact review and go through the topics. And of course, in the end, the topics can still change maybe 2 weeks before the meeting, but in that case already you make it clear what the customer can expect, and what you can discuss during those meetings. I think at the beginning, as a junior at the beginning, for me it's difficult. Hey, it's an impact review. I have like 4 or 5 slides, and these are the questions I'm going to ask. And if I checklisted them, then I'm done. But that's not about an impact review, right? You need to
Yeah.
know what do you want to discuss. And especially now, of course, in 2023, everyone is very busy, right? So every hour you're going to take from the customer, they also need to know that, okay, what's going to 1 hour of spend should be, of course, an added value, right? So you really need to understand and let them understand how it works.
Managing expectations, totally. I'm wondering if, like, when it comes to training customer success and onboarding customer success managers, how much are companies investing on actually training our customer success managers into having this type of mindset that you have, Ken, in which setting expectations from the beginning will lead to customer not churning, will lead to upsell, cross-selling, good relationship, and more. So I'm wondering here, like, are companies actually, do you feel that are investing as as much as they should?
Not always, but I think that's also connected with the point I made that sometimes it's for the customer not really, they don't know what kind of value has been added like during those meetings. So that's why also the customer is like, I'm too busy. Oh no, I don't have time for this, right? So you also need to make them aware about what can be expected, and it could be anything, right? It could be about discuss important KPIs, important data, maybe benchmark the data from to other customers. Could be about best experiences, right? A lot of customers want to know, okay, you probably have like similar companies within your portfolio. How do other customers do it, right? These kind of expertises, that's what they actually want. They can use the product in a better way, right? So that's really the added value as a CSM I think you can bring to the table at an impact review.
Jennifer, what are the common pitfalls in training for impact reviews? You, as director of customer success, what have you seen?
I've seen a lot of things, good and bad things. I think the first pitfall is to focus too much on the data and your slide deck and making it a very formal presentation where the CSM will speak for more than 50% of the meeting, whereas this meeting is actually about the customer. So ideally, you want the customer to speak more than you in that meeting. And that forces more junior CSMs to come out of their comfort zone because as long as you present, nobody can ask you a question that you might not be prepared for. So I would say for junior CSMs, focus on asking questions in the impact review and understanding where the impact is, and then trying to quantify and measure that impact. And step away a little bit from the slides and the deck. Another common mistake is to just bring data that the customer is anyway looking at all the time, and it doesn't bring anything new to the conversation. For example, screenshots from the first dashboard in your solution, the screen that the customer sees every day when he logs in the system. That's not necessarily the kind of data you want to bring in. You want to bring either new data points, or you want to be able to offer insights on your data points. And it's not really about this number is a 12 and it needs to be a 14. It's more, how did we get to the 12, and how much of a stretch do you think it's going to be to arrive to 14? So it's more about insights and discovery than necessarily having the perfect deck. And when I was a CSM, there would be moments where we would have such good discovery moments and conversations. We didn't even look at the deck, and I just send it afterwards as a follow up so that we still had some of the content communicated. But it's more about being in the moment and engaging with the customer and being curious. And then you can't really go wrong.
Amazing. Amazing tips that we're giving out here, especially for those who are just starting on customer success. And if you're not starting or you have done this for a couple of years, well, let's remember that a couple of years ago, everything was different as what it is right now. And I remember that we always had that mindset of having that PowerPoint presentation, probably, which sometime we had to stick with that. We had that mindset of sticking with that and only seeing that and not moving from there. Where nowadays, by talking to a couple of customer success professionals, they prefer just having that conversation where they need to screen share, they do a demo. When they have to see data, they screen share that data. So it's definitely changing. So, well, it's time to evolve as well. The second challenge that we're going to cover today is actually what data to bring to the table. What data is it actually important for our customers to actually see? So Ken, you as the frontline customer success manager, normally what data do you bring to the table in the impact reviews that you have seen that they work, they should be there?
Yeah, I think first of all, of course, depending what kind of data is available, right? I think in many cases you actually want to have all the data, but in some cases not that all the data is available. But I think it's twofold, right? On one hand, it's pure usage data. So what kind of, how is actually the usage of the users? Could be, of course, different kind of user, from key users to main users to maybe some smaller users. And also, if it's possible, of course, to translate those data to what is their adoption, right? Because it's not about, of course, they are using feature XYZ, but what does it mean, right? You also need to, if it's, but I think that part is very difficult, and I haven't seen a company having this a very proper way measuring the data. Is that, for example, based on this data usage, their adoption rate is 80%, or based on the size of their company, they should be using these kind of products, right? Or based maybe on the location of the company, they actually want to make some cohorts with some segments, and based on that, you want to estimate some kind of churn prediction.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be like the high level data usage, and that would be very nice, of course, if many SaaS companies are able to do that. But so far, I've seen companies where you can actually just see the feature adoption, the feature usage, right? So I think from there you can make an estimation by yourself and say, hey, you're using this and this and that. What's the usage? But of course, always be careful, of course, mentioning their usage, of course, right? Because you also don't want them to let them know that you're spying all about their data. Um, all the data points is also about NPS. I think a lot of companies also measuring the NPS. Could be also from different kind of users. From since the last meeting you had with the customer, what is their NPS they filled out, and of course to discuss, are they happy, are they not happy, what is causing this, and of course to question them, of course, about the NPS scores. And also I think a lot of missed ones and forgotten one is all the notes, of course, from previous meetings, right? But it could also be any connection point. It could be, for example, if you have a chat tool like Intercom, what kind of chats has been done with the support team, what were the notes from your the other CSM or your previous meetings. So like all the previous data sets, all the contact points, of course, also very interesting data sets, which could also help you to prepare the impact review. And so these are actually more like the, let's say, hard-coded data. And on the other hand, of course, you also want to go like naturally throughout the conversation. It could be more about market-specific news, right? Or maybe company-specific news. Maybe if you follow them on LinkedIn, you know, hey, they're going to expand, or maybe they're like a very difficult weather now. So that's kind of information, of course, you also want to challenge them during those impact reviews and just go through, hey, I read this. Maybe can you elaborate? It doesn't have like an impact on your company, maybe also impact on how we have a relationship together. Right? And these kind of information, of course, you can just prepare by Googling, just by understanding, of course, what their situation is. And I think also important, last but not least, is to challenge
Mhm.
them, right? Don't be afraid, but just be, if they're, of course, a churning risk, just mention them. Otherwise, then you already know, and maybe you can still prevent them, like in the future, instead of like if you're afraid, oh, maybe they might be churning because, of course, they're in difficult weather. I think those parts are very important. Yeah, for me at least, for preparing an impact review.
Amazing, amazing. Jennifer, let's change the this side of the question, and actually, I would like to hear, because what Ken, what you said is amazing. I think all of those are really important data to bring, and it all depends. Sometimes per company could be more, it could be less. It depends on the company's goals. It also depends on that you need to ask and you need to know what are the impact reviews goals. Like what is the company that you're working for are expecting you to extract as well from those meetings. Based on that, you can understand, you can know what to bring. But I want to know, Jennifer, what data not to bring.
Irrelevant data. So there is a lot of data available, and of course, there is data that you will miss because in an ideal world, you never have all the data points, right? But then you will have numbers that are not necessarily relevant for the customer. The number of login in your platform is not going to necessarily be relevant to the conversation. For example, in EdTech, people might log in. If they don't actually complete the course, they're not getting the value from the system. So it doesn't matter how many times they log in. The important part is how many courses did they actually finish, or the data or the usage goes down. It might be normal, right? It might be part of your business model. And that's going to be different for every SaaS solution to understand what do you want customers to do in the system. That's the data that you bring in the business review. The fluffy stuff is usually only there to fill in slides so that you can skip the discovery part and not have the conversation and just present. So I wouldn't bring more than 4 or 5 numbers overall on the entire meeting to make sure that they are the relevant ones and that they fit in the business outcomes of the customer. And that's what makes them relevant. And that's how you avoid no shows, ghosting customers when it's that time of the year with the QBR,
Mhm.
and that's why you have to make it super, super relevant and ideally really focus on only a few. And you can always rotate them from one impact review to the other. Because the beauty is an impact review repeats. It might not be quarterly, but there is a cadence. And you need to bring new content or relevant content every time. So you don't have to bring everything and the kitchen sink in that first impact review. You can prioritize. This is what we're going to talk first. And maybe impact review 3, this is where I'm going to bring different data points. So there is as well a ramp up and sort of a maturity into the content of the impact review, especially when you're dealing with customers over multiple years. Year 3, you cannot come with the same deck as year 1. They'll not come to the meeting anymore. They can probably run the meeting themselves by then. So you need to keep it fresh And keeping a few cards and a few data points closer to the vest to be able to bring fresh stuff all the time is actually probably a smart way. It adds focus to the conversation, it fosters conversation, and it helps you keeping it interesting over a long period of time for the customers.
Yeah, and I think what Jennifer also mentioned, I think also did it like starting at what I mentioned at the beginning with the customer journey until the end. That during the kickoff, of course, you set the goals, right? So in 6 months or 12 months or maybe 18 months, I want to achieve this, this, and that. And during the first impact review, you want to get back on the kickoff and say, hey, these were the goals. Did you achieve one of the goals, and which are not? Maybe we should still work on one of the goals, right? So you do in the end, you also don't want to have like any meeting which is a solo, like a standalone meeting, but it has to be connected to the other meetings, right? I think it also how to say that, like make it like a professional meeting. Oh, can actually also check, of course, the last meetings, and hey, it's indeed like not like one meeting. I think that one you can connect the chain, of course, and connect to the next meetings. And I think what Jennifer also mentioned, of course, then of course you can go up, and maybe the next year's strategy is, of course, maybe it increase this one to make this better. But at least then, yeah, you make like one seamless conversation flow from the beginning until the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Like to show that progress, because as um, the customer, as the more tenure they have with us as customer, their needs are going to change as well. And hopefully, like you are saying, it's going to start from here, it's going to go up, up, up. And I wanted to ask, and let's hear like how to little bit what data to bring to table. What about bringing data that you can compare with how their activity is versus other customers, like data where you can see, okay, this is your data, but this is the average of what our customers are doing. Would that be a good technique, or that depends more on if they are risk customers or not?
To me, I think it's something that you use rather than make it a staple in your deck. If they are, for example, in your top percentile and they're really benchmarking nicely across your customers, you can then use them to maybe leverage marketing content or have them speak on your behalf at events or make them ambassadors. If they are really, really low, this is a good moment to open up that Pandora box and really tackle those issues and help them progress. But I think um, if you are in the middle and it doesn't serve a purpose, it could be nice, fluffy information to sort of break the ice in the beginning. But if it doesn't add value and if it doesn't drive a further conversation, it remains just a number that sits on the slide and is not being discussed. So for me, when you bring data, it always needs to have a purpose and needs to
Mhm.
be discussed. It's not these are the numbers, have a look, let's move on. It needs to foster conversation and exchange.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think if you look at like pure hard-coded data, like for example, the company I work for, Recruity, you have of course metrics like time to hire, time to disqualification. Of course, you can compare and benchmark to the market, but it's so difficult to say, okay, this is like the average number of days, because like it's depending on so many other metrics as well. So it's not like, okay, this is the average, so you should also be on this average. Of course, it gives a little bit an idea, but it's not like 100% the truth, of course. But other examples you can do, for example, also at Recruit, you have like career sites, right? So as a uh, uh, candidate, you're looking for a job, you go to the career site and you apply, right? And these career sites are, of course, all available like on the web. So from there, you can actually say, hey, there are 4 or 5 examples, and the goal of those examples is to inspire the customer, right? To say these are the possibilities, these are the possibilities, and based on here, you can make your own career site and get inspired. I think that part is very important for me, for the customer, to help to inspire them, give them new ideas, to let them brainstorm based on what kind of technical possibilities are there from the product you are using, without, of course, stealing, let's say, data from other customers, right? Because it's a little bit also private. You also don't want to share everything, of course, to all the customers.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to have a look at, maybe it's more in certain SaaS solution, it's more relevant to benchmark against yourself than to actually benchmark against other people that might be doing things differently, doing it different verticals, in different markets, SMB versus enterprise. So sometimes it's more about your own progression and your own evolution than having a look if you're fitting with the crowd. So it will depend, I think, on the type of software that you're dealing with as well.
That's true. That's true. So that means that if a company doesn't, because maybe there are some startups, and I have been in a situation where a company where I used to work at, the data was not that strong, at least to show yet. That means that if there's no data, there's no impact reviews.
Absolutely not. There is no data. You can still have a business review.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the customer is supposed to speak more than you in that
Hmm.
meeting. So even if you don't have data, you can still ask questions. You can still derive soft goals or strategic goals. You can still make a roadmap of what you want to achieve between this impact review and the next impact review. Even if you don't have the data, your customers are still measuring you against some sort of number or KPI that they need to deliver. So you would have the number at your customer rather than having it for you. And that's why you need to be curious about how they measure success. And they will have that data point for you if you don't have it. And that's the conversations that you need to have and the questions that you need to ask. And like I said, you don't need a deck for an impact review. All you need to do is to have that conversation and be able to derive outcomes out of that conversation. And the deck to me is very much secondary, but it feels a bit safer for more junior CSMs to have a deck. But I think that the more you go in the seniority, especially in the SMB, you will see that the deck is being sent afterwards. And the business review is so engaging that people don't even care about the slides.
Hmm.
They want to continue talking about that one topic that you just touched upon and discovered.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, One of the tools that we use in our impact reviews definitely is the success plan. And there is an episode comment only that we're going to talk only about success plans. But how important is it in an impact review to bring that and use it during your conversations with the customer? How to use it? Has it helped before? What tips, recommendations do you have when it comes to using success plans in impact reviews?
Yeah, the success plan should be a staple of every business review. This is the one thing that you cannot not mention. And that's the backbone of the entire relationship, right? That's what you want to achieve together and what you're constantly working on. And the impact review is the moment where you step out of the execution of the success plan and actually look strategically what you've achieved and what the next steps should be. So that's the moment where you review that success plan together as a co-creation process, because in between, you're going to be very focused on executing the various points. And that's where you come back and have a helicopter view again of what you've done and what do we want to do. So you also want to generate the next roadmap for the next interval between this impact review and the next.
Hmm. Hmm. It's definitely the record of the progress as well, right? To see sometimes you can bring up the success plan, that what was done a year ago versus now, and you can see that a progress, hopefully, right? So that's like really, it must be amazing. It's amazing to see that positive growth. And the last challenge that we're gonna talk about today is about actually keeping our customers engaged during those 45 minutes. Well, normally I will prefer having that impact review in 45 minutes. So how do we keep our customer engaged during that conversation? I have had situations where I have seen them like actually multitasking. So how can we make them stay focused with us? And I will throw one technique there. Don't avoid, I mean, avoid over communicating. Sometimes we are experts in on what we do and we like what we do, so we just over communicate and we don't actually hear them, because remember, it's about the customer, it's about them. So what techniques, maybe Jennifer, let's start with you. What techniques, what advices would you give people when they see their customers kind of sleeping or even
Sleep.
multitasking?
If they're sleeping, then you probably did something wrong with your deck in the first place. If they
Yeah.
literally fell asleep, um, I think it's about asking them questions. You can't multitask and be on your phone or anything. If I go,
Mm,
Ken, tell me, did you achieve your targets last quarter? Then you're gonna
mhm,
have to down your phone and tell me about your targets last quarter, right? So it's about keeping that conversation, and it comes back to you saying about the over communication. You should not speak more than for 4 minutes maximum when you have a real topic, and the rest should really only be question and answers. And I think a technique that really works for me is to think about three pillars: the product, the people, and the person themselves, that you're talking to, and try and ask questions around that if you're really in the beginning of the relationship and you don't know. And then afterwards, it's more about all the information you don't have, like did your customer actually achieve their target last quarter? And then
mhm.
they will stay engaged because they talk about themselves. And that's what you want.
Amazing.
And also one technique you just used, Jennifer, is mentioning the name, right? Especially when it's like multiple
Yeah.
people. Mostly, of course, in an impact review, there may be the director, maybe like someone else, like maybe multiple people present, and not always, but most cases, of course, maybe one or two person are just like indeed multitasking. Maybe one person is paying attention and just like just mention the name. That always like, oh shit, I still have to be present, right? So I think that's what always helps for me actually to get everyone engaged and be present during the meeting. And also, I think what you mentioned, Jennifer, is asking questions, but also relevant questions, right? You also don't want to checkbox like a list, like where half the question are actually not relevant to the meeting itself. To make it relevant for the customer, that hey, by answering this question, also can help to get more engaged and yeah, help me out here. And also things like open questions, right? So not like, do you have any strategy for next year? No. Okay, right? Then of course the conversation gets like killed quite. What kind of strategy do you have like for next year, right? And then you'll have more like an open conversation, which you can also get the customer engaged more, way more.
Hmm. Totally. I was gonna say the name as well, and that also helps when you are like in your personal life, like also saying like the name of the person cuts their attention right away. I have two quick questions that I would like you to answer, maybe with like in 10 seconds, like really really quick questions. And one is, who should be part of the impact reviews? Which stakeholders
From the customer or from our
from the
side?
customer side? Let's say like the roles, or what are the stakeholders that should be normally there? Who are?
The executive that bought the system
Mm-hmm.
and the main super user
In the main
at,
super. For you,
at the
Ken?
minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, so the DMU, right, the one who signs the contract, will also make the decision, of course, of renewing the contract, and indeed like your main contact person. So in this case, the end user. Yeah.
Perfect. How often should impact reviews be scheduled for?
As often as necessary.
Nice.
Yeah, I think really depends on the size of the customer, the market you are in. I think could be in it every 3 months, even every 6 months. I think in between those numbers, but indeed really not like one specific frequency. No.
Okay. Should it be 45 minutes? Should it be 30? Should it be 20? Should it be an hour?
45 to an hour, I think, is comfortable for me.
Yeah, sometimes I even have like between 1 hour and 1.5 hours. It really depends on how, for example, if you're with the customer you haven't spoken for a couple of months, of course, you really want to plan the strategy for next year to discuss what has been achieved last year. Then, of course, maybe 1 hours can be too little, but this really depends, of course, also how much the customer talks, right?
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Okay. And with a yes or no, should impact reviews be an opportunity for upselling, cross-selling?
Yes and no. It's the moment you identify them, it might not be the moment where you try and close the deal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think
Can
by asking a good question, of course, you can identify indeed if there are any cross-sell or upsell opportunities. But in the next renewal meeting, for example, another meeting, of course, you discuss and yeah, more in depth. I agree.
Are you ready to continue talking about customer success?
Yes.
Yeah, you should have been saying yes right away.
I had
No,
10
this is
seconds.
this is the end of our amazing episode about making the impact reviews the new QBRs. So no more QBRs. let's start calling them impact review. So yes, that's gonna be the new name. Jennifer, Ken, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here with us and helping our community to grow and become better. Um, yes, so have a nice day, and I hope that you subscribe to our channel and wait for the next episode, which is gonna be an amazing one as well. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.